live chat. The Psychetruth live chat. Every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time on your YouTube machine. Live chat, live chat, live chat, live chat. I'll answer your questions about whatever you want to talk about on the Psychetruth. Live chat, live chat, live chat, live chat. Live chat, live chat, live chat, live chat. The Psychetruth live chat. Getting this live chat off to kind of a goofy start, as all of you know that I love to do. Thank you so much for being here. Just bring my chair down a little bit. All right, guys, so thank you so much for coming. Welcome, welcome, welcome. For those who don't know me, my name is Corrina Rachel. I'm a certified holistic health coach, and I have made hundreds of informational videos on this YouTube channel, Psychetruth, on every topic from nutrition, weight loss, stress relief. I'm also an ASMR video creator, which is an entire genre dedicated to stress relief and helping people to battle insomnia, anxiety, all kinds of stuff. So thank you for coming. And welcome, welcome, welcome. I am so happy to be here. I love doing these chats. This is your opportunity to ask me questions. Those of you in the chat room now, if you put some question marks at the beginning of your question, it'll just make it easier for me to see among all of the Brazilians of comments coming in. So I'm gearing up here. I'm getting ready. I'm super excited to answer y'all's questions today. So, let us begin, shall we? Okay. Scrolling down for comments, here we go. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. Brian Keith Counterman Jr., Issa Dev is here. It looks like you still have a little toolbar next to your name, so it looks like you're still, it's kept my settings for you being the moderator. So thank you so much for helping me to moderate this chat a little bit. Alrighty, already got some questions coming in. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Okay, so I'm just gonna start pummeling through these as quickly as I absolutely can. One little just kind of housekeeping thing is there's virtually no way for me to answer every single question, but I am going to do my absolute best. So the first question that was left here today is from Nana. Hello, Nana. Thank you for coming and thank you for your question. She says, what foods should I eat, especially to make me lose weight the fastest? So this is a really, really good question. Now, the bottom line when it comes to losing weight is eating real food. So when you see something with a really crazy ingredient list, I have this sitting here because I always use this as an example. This is a great example of just a crazy ingredient list with a bunch of weird chemicals on it. Now, it's not that every single chemical ingredient is bad, but what I've learned from years of reading food labels and Googling ingredient names and doing lots and lots of research on a lot of these ingredients, I found that number one, there's just too many of them to keep track of. So your best bet is to just stay away from processed foods altogether. So when I say to eat real foods, that means eating fruits and vegetables, of course, should maybe be the number one thing to eat. Especially for weight loss, guys, understand that when you eat green vegetables, and especially those dark leafy greens like spinach and kale, those vegetables, they kind of literally do make you burn weight. They help you to detoxify. They help to get rid of all the toxic junk. So especially those of you who aren't eating super clean all the time, understand that every time you eat a salad, that salad, those vegetables actually help you digest all the other crud that you may have eaten that day to help your body get rid of those toxins. So eating real foods, fruits and vegetables, things that don't have a big long ingredient list. All right, so if you were to just eat things like brown rice and beans, and if you eat meat and cheese, that's fine, but just stay away from the processed meat products, right? So you go to the butcher department and you get a piece of chicken. Guess what? There's no ingredient list. That is the big key thing, right? If there's no ingredient list at all, you know it's a real food, a whole food in its natural state. And that is the best thing to help you get healthy, lose weight, whatever it is. Another thing to consider when you're talking about losing weight the fastest, let's talk about the things that make you gain weight the fastest. What is at the root of this entire weight gain problem that so many of us are struggling with? Now, there's a lot of different factors, but one of the biggies is constant spikes of your insulin. Constant spikes of your insulin. So every time you eat sugar, obviously, you get an insulin spike. But understand, even those refined carbohydrates, your white bread, your pasta, your tortilla chips, all of those types of things, okay, those give you this huge spike in your blood sugar. And that is the number one thing to avoid. So by favoring real foods in their minimally processed state, you help to do that. You help to reduce the amount of insulin that you're going to get. So even something like brown rice, which is one of the, best sources of carbohydrates among these natural foods, it doesn't give you nearly the insulin spike that you would get from eating white bread. So my tips are start replacing your refined carbohydrates with minimally processed carbohydrates. So use things like brown rice, quinoa. There's a lot of whole wheat breads out there. Not all of them are necessarily good for you. Every single topic I go into, I'm like, oh, this is an important thing to say. This is important, but I'm trying to be fast. So replacing those refined carbohydrates with natural foods, and then understand that every time you eat a meal or a snack that's primarily fats and protein, you don't get that insulin spike, or you don't get it nearly as severely. So Nana's questions, what foods should I eat, especially to help me lose weight the fastest? Your healthy proteins and healthy fats. So avocados, nuts, seeds, beans, these are great sources of healthy fats and protein, and they're not going to give you that insulin spike that immediately causes weight gain. Awesome. Nana, thank you for your question. Yes, I still need a new calendar. Oh well. Thank you for pointing that out. Okay, best foods for breakfast when you're on a diet. I'm veggie, by the way. So this is from Becky XX X. Becky, thank you so much for your question. So this is really great, and this is an awesome kind of segue question from that topic we were just on. So oftentimes when we think of breakfast foods, what's the main thing we think of? Refined carbohydrates, bagels, waffles, toast, all of those things, pancakes. Unfortunately, guys, those are all in that category of refined carbohydrates you really want to avoid. So one of my favorite breakfasts is using brown rice, which was the alternative that I used in that last question. So instead of all of these white, that's one way to think of it, the white flour type products, the ingredient in these things that's really the most harmful is what's called enriched flour. So if you start looking at foods and seeing like, oh, does this have enriched flour in it? You'll start seeing that it's everywhere. And all of those white flour foods pretty much all contain it. Now, the good news is that there are a lot of actually really excellent, what you could call whole grain flour alternatives. So you can still make pancakes. You can still make waffles. I don't know so much about making bagels, but I'm sure you could, okay? And all of your other things, toast, whatever, just using a whole grain flour instead of that enriched white flour. Now, this is kind of a little bit of a tangent. I will maybe, if somebody asks about bread, I'll go into this later. But bottom line is avoiding those white flour foods in favor of something that's whole grains. So oatmeal is a great example. But you don't want to eat that instant oatmeal. that's like just add water, because usually if you look at it, it's got a bunch of ingredients and it's a processed food. But if you actually just get, I think they're called like oat groats, is the least processed form of oats. But then you can also just get regular, like 100% pure oats and make your own oatmeal. There's a lot of whole grain, hot cereals out there that use this concept, using whole grains instead of white flour. Other really great things to do for breakfast are, again, healthy proteins and healthy fats. I sound like a broken record, but bottom line, guys, is this is one of the most important little gems of information that can really help you unlock the weight burning or fat burning power inside of your body. So replacing those refined carbs with whole grains. Using healthy sources of fat and protein really as the bulk of your meal in addition to vegetables. So we could, again, talk about avocados. I'm a really big fan of eating nuts and trail mix and stuff like that in the morning because it's really fast. So I can just make, I'll kind of make my own trail mix. So I'll have a variety of usually raw nuts. If you can find raw nuts, that's going to be your healthiest nut as opposed to the roasted salted ones. But even a roasted salted nut is much better for you than a potato chip. All right, so it's all kind of in, it's all kind of in reference to each other, right? So nuts, seeds, there's a really great chia seed pudding recipe that I have on Psychetruth. So basically you use chia seeds and you can just use water with them and they kind of make this gel-like consistency. I call it like pudding. But I like to use almond milk or coconut milk with the chia seeds. And then you get this like delicious, creamy, yet vegan, really amazing healthy source of all these different fats and proteins that you get from chia seeds, the almond milk, etc. Cinnamon is a wonderful thing. Cinnamon is excellent for helping to balance your blood sugar. So it's a great thing to have first thing in the morning. So you're just starting the day out by helping to, just gear your body up for this day of eating that you're going to be doing. You're going to be spiking your blood sugar unless you're on a ketogenic diet. So cinnamon in the morning on my breakfast is something great. Brown rice with dried cranberries and honey and cinnamon. That is one of my go-to breakfasts. And if you're using like organic raw honey or maple syrup even is a healthy sweetener. It gives you B vitamins. It gives you minerals. You just have to make sure that it's not the processed pancake syrup with a bunch of ingredients. A lot of the syrups out there, if you look at the ingredients, it's like high fructose corn syrup, maple flavor. That's not the healthy one. It needs to be like 100% maple syrup. Kind of goes back to that idea of eating whole foods, real foods in their minimally processed state with either a really short ingredient list or none at all. So really good question, Becky. I've actually done a lot of videos about breakfast foods. So if you put in breakfast on Psychetruth, you can find those videos, and there's a lot more information in those videos. All right, I like this. Nevada B, thank you for your question. Nevada says, is it possible to reverse the damage caused by stress? So, anytime somebody says the word stress, it reminds me to take a deep breath. So luckily, Nevada, the answer is yes. The body is an incredible wonder. And if you've ever had a broken arm or a scrape or a bruise or a cut or a surgery or anything like that, right? You have witnessed the fact that our bodies heal. They literally have an innate inclination towards healing, an innate inclination towards repairing damaged cells, damaged tissues, even in the process of cell replication, right? So every single cell in your body, there's billions of them, they're constantly replicating. You're constantly regenerating your skin, regenerating your liver, regenerating your everything, every tissue in your body. So this is why you can get a cut or a bruise, and maybe it looks super gnarly, but within a couple days or maybe a week, it completely goes away. Right? So your body heals. That's the bottom line. And Nevada, that means the answer to your question is yes. You can reverse any type of damage you do to your body. So stress, yes, stress is a very, unfortunately, a very harmful thing for us. We can talk about the negative effects of cortisol, which is one of the stress hormones. It is highly correlated with belly fat. That's one of the biggest things that I think people don't realize. I see so many people asking about how to get a flat tummy, how to get rid of belly fat. Interestingly enough, one of the biggest things you can do is reduce your stress levels and get more sleep. Watch some ASMR videos if you can't fall asleep. So stress, related to that belly fat thing that almost everyone wants to end. We can also talk about how cortisol negatively affects the, what you could call like the integrity of our blood vessels and our tissues. And there's just lots and lots of negative problems associated with cortisol. But remember, your body wants to heal. And the only thing that prevents our bodies from healing is toxicity or doing damage to the body. So the minute that you start to reduce your stress levels by breathing deeply instead of shallowly, just taking a moment to pull away from your computer, maybe walk outside for a minute, take a breath of fresh air. I get my energy level really high up to do this chat so I can get through a lot of questions, but when I'm talking about stress, I immediately feel like I should probably talk about it more like this, right? Because stress is something that's really negative for our bodies. Okay, so yes, you can reverse the damage. All you have to do is stop stressing yourself out, get more sleep. We can talk about deep breathing deeply, just noticing, when you're stressed out and you're like, right? You're basically hyperventilating yourself. So what do? You stress your body out more. So when you're feeling stressed out, if you can remember to just take a slow, deep breath. When you exhale for a longer duration of time than you inhale, that helps to literally reduce the physical stress factors in your nervous system. So a long, slow exhale, this will really help to reduce your stress levels, not to be redundant. Other good ideas are find a hobby, find something you enjoy. Anything you do that makes you smile is stress relieving activity and is really good for you, and you should do more of it. So, sometimes when I'm really stressed out, I'm like, you know what? I need to watch a cute cat video. That would make me feel better. And you know what? It always does. So I only share this little anecdote to really drive home the point that you have to do things that you enjoy. Make time for relaxation. Make time for your hobbies, your creative activities, anything that helps you express emotion or just feel happy. That is a wonderful thing to do, and it's very, very good for you in the sense that it helps to reduce your stress levels. All right, Nevada, thank you so much. Really good question. Yes, your body can heal, but you gotta stop stressing yourself out if you want to allow that healing to take place. Yes, yoga. So Ilki Aptroot is chiming in here. He says it's called yoga, deep breathing, stretching. So yeah, if you're like not into yoga, you think that's weird, fine. Put on a stretching video. But anything you do to move your body, slow your breath, all of those things are so wonderful for reducing your stress levels. George Knott Smith, thank you so much for reminding everybody to please, please, please like, favorite, and subscribe to this video, to this channel. I got 45 likes right now, so thank you for that. That definitely helped. Okay, here we go. Looking for question marks, looking for question marks. Really quick, okay, Annabellis, that's a really pretty name. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but Annabellis Salcedo says, do you recommend dieting for breastfeeding mommies? So I get this question a lot. Usually after a woman has a baby, there's unwanted weight that she is very, very anxious to get rid of. So a lot of people are like, hey, is it safe for me to start exercising? What kind of diet should I go on, etc. The bottom line when you are breastfeeding is that you are giving your baby the nutrients that it needs to lay the foundation for the entire rest of your baby's life. The entire rest of your child's life. So when you are breastfeeding, I would say the absolute most important thing shouldn't be fitting into your jeans from high school, shouldn't be looking this way, shouldn't be whatever. It should be providing for your baby what it needs the most. And interestingly, that will also give you what you need the most. So my recommendation is to just prioritize eating really healthy. Rather than focusing on calorie restriction, which is something you definitely don't want to do, it's very, very typical for breastfeeding mommies to continue eating a lot and eating more than they normally would because you're providing food for your baby. Even though it comes out in the form of milk, you've got to eat food in order to put the nutrients into that breast milk so that your baby can have the energy, the building blocks that it needs for its body to grow. So eating healthy, lots of vegetables, lots of, natural whole foods, what I've already kind of talked about a lot here. Staying away from processed foods as much as you can. A lot of the chemicals, so I held this up as an example. A lot of these chemicals, the body is very resilient. The body repairs, the body heals. That's what I was just talking about in that last question. But what our bodies can handle as adults, as 150-pound or 200-pound humans, okay? What our bodies can handle is very different from a newborn baby. And for a baby who weighs, like 6 pounds or 8 pounds, maybe they're up to 15 pounds or something. I don't freaking know how much babies weigh. But bottom line is, you can understand that even a tiny, tiny bit of a harmful chemical, where maybe for you, it's not that harmful, your body can get rid of it, but for a baby that doesn't have nearly as much weight and that doesn't have nearly as much nutrition coming in, those harmful chemicals are even more harmful to them. So staying away from processed foods is probably one of the biggest recommendations I can make for mommies. So don't calorie restrict. Eat what you need to eat to help yourself feel full, because if you're hungry, that's your baby trying to tell you that, well, I guess I'm talking about pregnancy now. But if you're hungry, okay, eat. Don't calorie restrict. Don't be so focused on losing weight. A lot of women I've talked to, almost all of them that have breastfed, said that just breastfeeding made them lose a lot of weight. They didn't really do anything, particularly different. They weren't dieting, they weren't exercising a lot or whatever, but just the breastfeeding itself helps the body to shed a lot of weight. So Annabelle, I really hope that gives you a little frame of reference. This is a really, really good question, but unfortunately it doesn't apply to a whole lot of people. So I'm going to go ahead and move on. There's a lot of information out there about nutrition for mommies and nutrition for, mommies after the baby is born. Nutrition for breastfeeding moms. That is definitely a topic that there's plenty of information out there for you. So I hope that you'll do a little bit of research. And thank you so much for your question. Okay, me, LOL. That's really funny. So this question is from me, LOL. That's the screen name. Why are canned foods unhealthy? So I imagine that this is a reference to one of my recent videos, which was 7 foods to never eat. And one of the things that I listed in that video was canned foods. Okay, so it's not that every single food that comes in a can is bad. And especially nowadays, there's actually a lot of what I consider to be fairly healthy foods, or at least pretty healthy foods, that come in cans. So you can find, organic corn, organic black beans, stuff like that. And guys, when I go camping, I bring a lot of canned foods like that. But again, I'm really looking for things that say like low sodium, organic, whatever. And then I always read the ingredient list. That's just kind of a thing I always do for everything I buy, is read the ingredient list. And so it takes me a long time to grocery shop. And I get a lot of flack about that, actually. But I feel like it's worth it. So anyways, the thing about canned foods, there's a couple things. The typical canned foods that we think of. So things like Campbell's soup. Typical, baked beans. Remember always eating like baked beans as a kid that came out of a can. Most of these foods are, I don't know what to say, but they're suspended in water. So you get a can of corn or beans or whatever, right? It's liquid inside the can. Well, in that goo, you find a lot of kind of crazy food additives. So typically they are adding a lot of salt. And one of the biggest things to look for when you get a canned food is the sodium content. And if you look at the sodium content of a chicken noodle soup or a Campbell's tomato soup or Bush's baked beans or whatever it is, you'll be blown away by the sodium content. Now, Campbell's and all these places, nowadays, you'll actually see on the front of the can, they'll be like, now lower sodium, or lower sodium than the typical canned foods. Don't fall for it. Okay? If those people cared about your health, they wouldn't have put so much sodium in the foods originally. So what food companies are realizing now is that we as consumers are getting smarter. We're starting to read ingredient labels. There's certain things we're trying to avoid. We're trying to avoid trans fats. So you'll see a lot of literally processed junk foods like potato chips and Cheetos, and it'll be like 0 grams of trans fat. Right? Because they know that consumers are getting smarter. We're trying to avoid these things we know are bad for us. So if they really cared about our health, they would have never been using trans fats in the first place. The bottom line is they don't care about your health. They're trying to sell you something. So don't fall for it when you see these canned foods that are like low in sodium, whatever. Like I said, there are some decent foods out there. Typically, if I'm going to buy a canned food, I try to find something organic. And then again, I always look at the ingredient label, look at the sodium content, make sure it doesn't have things like high fructose corn syrup. Just on a side note, if you see partially hydrogenated oils, that's trans fats. So even a food like Cheetos that says 0 grams of trans fat on the front of the label, if you turn it over and read the ingredients, it does contain trans fat because it does contain partially hydrogenated oils. And they actually use, such a long tangent. Okay, trans fats, separate topic. Let me know if y'all want me to talk about it, and I will. Other problems with canned foods. So honestly, the sodium, the additional weird chemicals and flavorings, that's probably the main reason. Secondarily, we could talk about the lining of the can. So even if there wasn't any lining in the can, just eating out of aluminum in and of itself, it's not something that's going to hurt you if you do it once. But if you're constantly eating canned foods all the time, understand that there is some amount of aluminum that transmits into the food, and the longer that it sits on a shelf, which is what canned foods are made to do, the more of that potential exposure to aluminum that you have. Adding insult to injury, a lot of the cans are lined with something called BPA, or bisphenol A, which has been found to be very, very harmful for our health. But guess what? All these crazy food manufacturers have been using BPA for years and years and years. It's in the plastic water bottles, it's in the lining of cans. A lot of the baby food, food for babies is terrible, will actually contain BPA in the lining of the packaging. So again, you'll find some canned foods that literally say BPA-free lining. We don't use this chemical in the lining. And that's a good sign, but at the same time, there's probably a lot of other chemicals out there that we just don't know that they're harmful for us yet. So anyways, my personal preference is just to avoid canned foods altogether. Like I said, when I go camping, I will take canned foods with me because it's easier. But as a general rule of thumb, you should always be opting for fresh foods. When you eat the fresh food, especially something that you've prepared at home, or especially a fresh vegetable that doesn't really require any preparation at all, all right, that is how you're going to harness the most nutrients from the food and just ensure that there's as minimal amount of toxicity as possible. Because when you start having something with an ingredient list and added salt and whatever else, now we're just kind of piling on the things that pull from the nutrient density, pull from the health of the food. And a lot of those things are potentially harmful, varying levels of harmfulness. So anyways, me, LOL, thank you for asking that question. There actually will be an entire video about canned foods coming out. So every single food that was in that 7 foods to never eat, there will be an entire video discussing that food and offering the healthy alternatives. So you can keep your eyes peeled for that. It is in the works. Thank you so much. Dancing Hodl says you're such a good singer. I love you. Thank you so much. I love you too. It's very sweet. Yeah, Issa, if you just want to ban Sexy Babes 1, 2, 3, 4, pretty much that person always comes in here and asks to see my belly or my feet or something. I don't know. Anyways, you can just ban Sexy Babes altogether because I've never seen a helpful or useful comment or question from that person. M and R says, I will not wait this long. I don't see your question, M and R. I don't know if that's what you're referencing. Okay, so here we are. Canned foods. Ooh, okay. Tia Mankins. I noticed when I'm stressed out, my sciatica acts up more. So what can I do to de-stress? So this is awesome. I talked about stress already earlier in the chat, so this will be a great just kind of like dovetail onto that question. So I talked about breathing deeply, just taking a deep breath. And the first step to that is just noticing your breathing. Because you're not just going to immediately go from like to like sitting here breathing deeply like I just did. It takes practice, right? It takes time of just creating that new habit. So the first step is just noticing. When you feel stressed and you're feeling stressed and you start to feel your sciatica act up, notice how you're breathing. And I bet you anything you're not taking slow, deep breaths. So breathe deeply. If you can walk outside and get fresh air and a little bit of vitamin D from the sun, depending on where you live, fresh air, stepping outside is a great way to help flood the body with oxygen. Taking a deep breath inside is good, but inside you're breathing in, there's a lot of weird chemicals that like outgas off of the paint and the carpet and the computers. And so anyways, step outside, go outside. A long walk outside is a great way to relieve stress. So just being in nature in general. I remember when I was in college, there was some study I read that just found that people looking at a picture of a tree would reduce their stress levels, reduce the cortisol levels, and actually looking at a real tree would reduce it even more. Really cool, right? So just being in nature, just looking at things in nature or a picture of nature, if you can't go outside, can really, really help you to calm down a little bit. Long walks outside is one of the best things I can recommend. There was somebody earlier asking about how do I get started being healthy and losing weight. Taking walks is a really good place to start. Start with a 10-minute walk. Walk around the block. And then maybe you step it up and you're like, okay, I'm going to walk around the block twice. And then maybe after you get used to walking, you find that you enjoy it. Then you're like, hey, I'm going to go find a hiking trail somewhere. So you can take a nice long walk out in nature. Such a great thing to do for your health and your stress. Moving the body. Moving the body is so important. So one important thing to understand about stress is that it is both a physical and mental phenomenon. So, when you're feeling stressed and it's like your brain it's going a million miles a minute, you can't stop thinking, you can't stop worrying, it's just constant. It feels like it's just a mental thing. But what you really need to realize is that it's also a physical phenomenon. And what I mean by that is that when you start feeling stressed up here, it kind of domino effects, you could say, kind of domino effects a lot of physiological responses in the body. So the flood of the stress hormone cortisol, which I mentioned earlier. So cortisol correlated with belly fat, correlated with heart disease, correlated with metabolic syndrome. Cortisol, very, very bad guy. All right, so that mental stress literally releases this hormone that's not good for you. Now, cortisol, from an evolutionary standpoint, is there to help give you that energy, that adrenaline, to help you fight or flight from a stressful situation. But in our modern day lives, there's just stress everywhere. And it's usually not a bear or a tiger or something you need to flight or fight from. So we get this surge of cortisol, but then what do? We're still sitting there on our butt. It's like, you know what it's like? Have you ever been sitting at a stoplight or something, and there's a guy next to you, and he's got some like really fancy car, and he starts revving his engine up. And he's just like pumping the gas. It's like, woo! But he's just sitting there at the stoplight. He's not going anywhere. That's kind of a, it's a totally weird analogy, but that's kind of what's happening when you have stress. It's like your body is releasing all of this energy, all of this power, aka the gasoline, that's supposed to help you rev up and go, but then you're just sitting there. So what do? You're wasting your energy. So you're actually reducing your energy levels by being stressed out. Okay, you're wasting your energy, you're wasting your fuel, and then all of these other negative effects caused by the cortisol. In the case of the car, you're polluting the environment more than you already are by having some souped up car. All right, so I like that analogy though. Don't rev your engine while you're sitting at a stoplight. This is like a great analogy for not stressing yourself out, because that surge of adrenaline and cortisol is just wasted. And so now you've wasted a lot of your energy. Another good tip, kind of relating to this, is to think about, I always use this analogy, to think about a stagnant pond. So just thinking about the difference between a beautiful flowing stream where the water is so clear you can see down to the bottom. You can see the little fishes and minnows swimming in it because the water is so clear. Water is moving, okay? So there's the movement. And then in that stagnant pond where the water is sitting there, the water's practically black. Maybe it has this little film on top of it. It's like, oh my God. And it smells like you can smell that pond from a mile away. It stinks. It is a little cesspool of disgusting bacteria and who knows what else. So this is the analogy for what's going on inside of our body when we're sedentary, when we're stagnant, versus when we have movement. So even if it's just that 10-minute walk every day, even if it's just 10 minutes of stretching, you can watch a stretching video or you can just stretch, just move. Like whatever it takes to make you move your body, move your body. Think about that car at the stoplight revving its engine and just wasting its gasoline. Think about that stagnant pond and how just a little bit of movement can take that water from disgusting and putrid and black to beautiful and clear and clean. You can think about a little deer walking up to the water and drinking a little bit of water out of that beautiful flowing stream. That deer isn't going to drink out of a stagnant pond unless it's desperate, right? Okay. So cool. Little discussion of stress there. Move your body, breathe deeply, get outside, do things you enjoy, anything that makes you smile, anything that makes you laugh, literally anything. All right. For me, things that give me a creative outlet and emotional catharsis. So for me, that's playing music, as you saw at the beginning of the chat. I'm like total dork, okay? But playing music, making art, doing something creative. If you have a kid, doing little fun arts and crafts projects could be such a great way to not only bond with your kids, but also to be doing something fun and creative and expressive and enjoyable. So I hope that those ideas help you. I have probably a couple dozen videos specifically on the topic of stress. We also have an entire channel dedicated to stress relief. So that is our ASMR channel. And if you just put in those 4 letters, ASMR, stands for Autonomous Sensory Meridian Response, but you don't have to know that. ASMR. Those videos are completely designed to help people relax. There's guided meditations. There's also what it focuses on is these what's called binaural sounds. So it's 3D. You hear different sounds in the different ears, and it just helps to kind of stop that mental chatter, stressful thing that keeps us awake at night. So ASMR is a great thing to check out. For anyone that's having problems with stress or anxiety or insomnia, I highly encourage you to check those videos out. There's a lot of different types of them. They're all different. So you may check out the first one and be like, this is weird, I don't like the sounds, but check out some different ones. Because every person likes different sounds and different styles of videos, but I really do feel like there's something for everybody. Ooh, so happy for this question. Kara Carmack. I actually really like your name too, Kara Carmack. Do you think Weight Watchers is a good program for a beginner who has 100 pounds to lose? Okay, Weight Watchers. Now, just to preface this, okay, this is someone, this is coming from someone, I've never actually done Weight Watchers. So I don't have I don't have firsthand experience of what this program is like or what it entails. But my impression of it, based on other people I've known who have done it, based on the commercials, stuff like that. So the most recent Weight Watchers commercial I saw is this woman who's probably not on Weight Watchers, okay? She's an actress, more than likely. And she's like, I'm on a diet, but I eat potato chips. I eat cookies. I drink sodas or whatever. She's like sitting there bragging about how she's on a diet, but she still gets to eat all this complete junk that typically you would not eat if you were on a diet because they're bad for you. So my impression of Weight Watchers is that essentially we're focusing on the quantity of calories. So it's about counting calories. Well, what they do instead of counting calories is assign points to different foods. So, I don't know exactly how it works or whatever in terms of like how many points are associated with what or whatever. But the bottom line is that it's kind of a glamorized form of counting calories. But the problem with Weight Watchers and a lot of the calorie counting type diets and programs and whatever it is that's out there is that, in my opinion, you are not doing yourself any favors by focusing only on the quantity of the calories you're eating. What I encourage you to do, what I have seen work for people, what I have seen resolve so many weight issues, health issues, energy issues, is to take your focus off of the quantity of the food that you're eating and counting calories, and instead put your focus on the quality of the foods that you're eating. So what do I mean by that? So if you're on Weight Watchers or what's another one? If It Fits My Macros. That's another one, all right, that I just think it's an excuse to eat junk food. And they pull people in to this diet by being like, oh, you still get to eat the foods you love. But guess what? You only get to eat like this much of them. Do you ever see when you go in the grocery store, they'll have those packages of like 100-calorie snacks or whatever? It's like 100-calorie snack pack of Oreos, 100-calorie snack pack of Chips Ahoy. Right? But what is so freaking funny is it's like this big. It's tiny. It's like this little, it's like, oh, no, you get this cute little bag of chips. Oh, so homegirl on the commercial is like, I get to eat chips on my diet. Yeah, you get to eat like 4 chips. Okay? Or whatever it is. Bottom line here, right, is they let you still eat junk. They let you still eat crap that you should not be eating, and that, in my opinion, they should not be selling in the first place. Okay? They let you still eat that stuff, but they put these really stringent rules on you about how much you can eat. So now you become fixated on counting your calories and counting your points. And is this going to fit my points? Is this going to fit my macros? Am I going to go over my point for this day? And what have you done? Most people, even if they do lose weight while they're on the program, they gain it all right back. Because as soon as you stop being a freaking freak about counting your calories and keeping track of your points, what happens? All the weight comes right back, and typically people gain more weight than they even lost. So here's what I propose, and here's what I've seen work for a lot of people. Take your focus off that quantity issue and put it on the quality. Focus on eating real foods in their minimally processed state, so they don't come in a box, they don't come in a plastic bag. You shop in the produce department or at the deli counter. Or here at the health food grocery stores we have here, there's a bulk department where you go in and there's like a bucket of brown rice and a bucket of almonds, and you just, fill up. You can even bring your own containers from home. So I'll actually show up with a bunch of glass jars and fill up my big glass jar of brown rice and fill up my big glass jar of quinoa. Fill up my big glass jar of oats, right? Bulk department, because none of those things have ingredient lists. It's one food. And I know that maybe sounds silly or whatever, but the whole idea is that you're staying away from this crazy processed junk with a bazillion ingredient lists, and you're just going to eat things that are one whole food. And they haven't been processed. They're as close to their natural state as possible. And I guarantee you, if you can get rid of those processed foods, the potato chips, the white bread, especially the fast food and stuff like that. But even there's a lot of foods that they look like they're healthy on the outside. We could even talk about the microwave meals called healthy choice. There's nothing effing healthy about that. It's not real food. Period. Eat real food. Eat fruits and vegetables. Take your mind off of this whole, I've got to stringently count my calories thing. Who wants that? Who wants to do that? Raise your hand if you love counting calories. All right. Really good question, Kara. Thank you so, so much. I'm actually working right now on a 30-day weight loss program. I'm going to call it the weight loss transformation, because the whole idea is not that you lose a bunch of weight in the 30 days and then gain it all back and come back and do the program again later. The idea is this program is literally going to transform your body into a fat burning machine and help you develop the healthy habits that you need to make losing weight something easy, to make it something that isn't stressful, to make it something that's actually fun. So that program is in the works. I hopefully will be able to roll that out soon. It's a lot of videos I need to film to get all of the information into it that I want to include. So it's going to take me a little bit to complete that project, but it is in the works. Anyways, guys, I've made so many videos about weight loss. I think that if you just watched one of them or two of them, and especially if you watched 5 or 6 of my weight loss tips videos, you would be equipped to lose weight, and you don't have to pay a single freaking cent. You don't have to count a single freaking calorie. All right. Ooh, I love this. Naradam Ross. What can I do to repair leaky gut? Now, this is kind of an unsavory topic, but I literally believe that pretty much every person, or almost every person, who is living in the United States or in a country that eats like we eat here, you have a leaky gut. And it is at the root of your health and weight loss issues. So what is leaky gut? Where does it come from? And how do you repair it? So basically what this refers to is the lining of your digestive tract. All right, so you got your stomach, you've got like miles of large intestine and small intestine and colon and all. It's not pleasant, but bottom line is you've got a lot of digestive tract. It's not just like 1 foot. Okay, it like weaves all around in your belly, right? A bazillion different times. I wish I knew the exact number, but it's like miles. I don't know if it's miles, but it's a lot, right? You got a lot of digestive tract, and all of that digestive tract has a lining, obviously. So imagine a water hose, right? Imagine a water hose. Now, typically, you don't get a hole in your water hose, right? You know, maybe after you've had it for a couple years, there's like kinks in it and stuff. Maybe it develops a hole, you got to patch it. But typically, when you run water through a water hose, it does not create holes. It certainly doesn't create holes very quickly, right? The water runs through the water hose and comes out the other end, and the water hose is typically fine for several years, right? Well, what if you were to start making a blend of, take razor blades, chop them up real small, and maybe some, what's like a really abrasive thing, like nail polish remover. It's like really abrasive thing. All right, so you got your nail polish remover and laser blade, little concoction that you blended up, and now you're gonna run that through the water hose. What do you think is gonna happen? What is the likelihood of creating a hole in your water hose as opposed to when you were just running water through it? Okay, so what this comes down to, okay, is the same as we are in our little water hose analogy, is what are we putting through our digestive tract? And how does the food that we eat and the byproducts of the food that we eat affect the lining of our digestive tract? So when you're eating, what do you think I'm going to say? Natural foods in their minimally processed state, and especially vegetables. And especially with there's 2 different types of fiber. There's insoluble fiber and soluble fiber, and they're both really, really important. But bottom line is when you're eating a healthy diet of natural foods, it's like running water through the water hose. Goes in one end, goes out the other, everything's fine. Maybe as you age, you start to have some, damage or something that occurs, but it's not nearly as bad as when you're running razor blades and nail polish remover through it. Okay, so in the typical diets that we're eating of processed foods, GMOs, gluten is another one. Gluten is a big one. So gluten, it's not that gluten is like a razor blade, all right, but gluten is a big molecule. Another thing to understand about your digestive tract is that the whole reason it's there is to keep the things that you eat and all the sludge that your body makes digesting the things you eat, to keep them in one place and to keep them out of your bloodstream. Right? Because otherwise you would just eat, it would go in your esophagus and just like empty into a big empty vat that's like your blood and your stomach and your organs. No. But there's a digestive tract to keep all of those things out of your bloodstream. So what happens as we eat a diet of processed foods, as we eat a diet with a lot of sugar, refined carbohydrates, the lining of the digestive tract starts to become, starts to lose its integrity, you could say. So now, where it used to do a really good job keeping everything in, it becomes leaky. And when that happens, certain things that we eat enter the bloodstream. So gluten is one of the big ones that's gotten a lot of attention because they've been specifically able to go in and find that gluten is harmful when it enters your bloodstream. And a lot of the people who end up with a gluten intolerance, gluten allergy, or other types of just digestive tract issues like diverticulitis, I saw someone say, ulcerative colitis is another one. Those types of conditions are going to result. Because now the things that are supposed to be staying inside of the stomach and digestive lining are exiting out into the bloodstream, and they're not supposed to be there. They're harmful when they enter the bloodstream. So now to your real question, Norodom, which is how do I repair leaky gut? So you repair leaky gut in the same way that you caused leaky gut in the first place, or kind of using the same thing. So rather than putting razor blades and nail polish remover through your digestive tract, aka water hose, now we want to move towards putting water through the water hose. Putting the things through the digestive tract that are supposed to go there. So your natural foods, your fruits and vegetables, your leafy greens, again, I feel like a broken record, spinach, broccoli, cruciferous vegetables, kale, those guys are the champs, the superfoods of vegetables. All your vegetables are good for you, but you get even more nutrient density is what it's called. That just means how many nutrients are crammed into the food, gram for gram, ounce for ounce. How many nutrients are crammed into the food. Those leafy greens and cruciferous vegetables, boom. Really good thing to go for. Really good thing to help repair all different parts of your body, including your digestive tract. Those different sources of fiber. So we can talk about beans as a great source of fiber, your legumes. So you got chickpeas, black beans, kidney beans. They all offer a different profile of nutrients. So I really encourage people to have a variety of foods in the diet. But beans are a great source of that fiber that kind of, I don't know how to describe it, but it helps everything flow through the water hose the way it's supposed to, you could say. Let's see, what else? Typically, people who are trying to repair leaky gut are also going to benefit from avoiding gluten. Not so much because gluten causes a leaky gut, but because it is one of the worst things to permeate that digestive tract lining. Another thing to consider is the way that grains and wheat in particular is processed. Now, I don't want to go off on a big long tangent here like I always do, but this is a really important topic related to digestive health. Anyone in this chat room right now with indigestion or any type of digestive issue, especially if you've been actually diagnosed with a specific digestive tract problem, you need to understand that the way wheat is processed in the typical I don't know what to say. I just want you to understand how all-encompassing this is. So all of the wheat in all of the white bread products, in all of the flour products, in your fast food, in your processed food, and even in the foods in the grocery store that sound like they're supposed to be healthy. Especially when you see that enriched flour. And I know a lot of people don't read ingredients. I say that all the time. I know a lot of people won't read it. But if you were to read them, you would see that enriched flour is in everything. Literally just the way they process the wheat. What they do to the grain to turn it into flour is terrible for you and is a contributing factor to leaky gut and other digestive tract issues. So avoiding refined carbohydrates, avoid that enriched flour as best that you can. Just eat natural foods. That's the bottom line. Somebody try to... Oh, okay. Dan M, this is not a dating site. I guess somebody was in here trying to pick people up. That's funny. Oh, preservatives. Nevada B. Adding in here, canned foods are also full of preservatives. That's such a great point. It's just one of the many different types of chemicals that they add to the processed foods to make them last longer. Nina Nin, what is the best sweetener? Man, there's so many good questions. I have this really bad problem where I'll see one question and then I'll kind of just like quickly glance at the other questions, and I gotta not do that. I gotta like, stay focused, Corrina. All right, Nina Nin, what's the best sweetener? Now, this is a good question because who out there doesn't have a sweet tooth? Anybody? I mean, there's definitely some people out there that's like, I don't like chocolate, or I don't really like sweet foods. That's fine. But most people do. So I'm going to talk about sweeteners for a second. I've done this discussion a lot, so forgive me, those of you who come to the chat room all the time, if this is a bit repetitive. I really like to have, I'm going to use this Expo eraser as my spectrum. All right. So imagining this Expo eraser as a spectrum of sweeteners, on the absolute worst of the worst, bad, 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 don't eat them, avoid them at all costs. We've got things like high fructose corn syrup. We've got things like sugar, just regular, plain old boring sugar. Okay, so it's what comes in the little sugar packets. It's also what they just typically add to all of your foods. All right, so when you see sugar on the ingredient label, that's your refined white sugar or whatever you want to call it. It's bad. It's bad for you. The worst of the worst, in my opinion, are the artificial sweeteners. So aspartame, sucralose, and acesulfame potassium. Now, again, the food manufacturers have observed that we as consumers are starting to get smarter, and people were starting to try and avoid aspartame. So what did they do? They just created some other chemicals that people wouldn't recognize. So sucrose is just another way of talking about sugar, but sucralose is an artificial sweetener. And I think that they did that on purpose to trick people. So they see it and they're like, oh, sucralose, it must just be sucrose. No, it's a freaking artificial sweetener, just like aspartame. Just like aspartame. Aspartame has literally the most FDA complaints of any other food chemical out there, period. Bar none. People that experience headaches or dizziness or itchiness or stomach problems or whatever, right? You go to the FDA.gov website and you enter in your complaint about that food chemical, and aspartame has more than any other food chemical. So, aspartame, sucralose, and acesulfame potassium, it's what's in the little pastel packets if you go into a restaurant. Those are the big bad guys that I recommend you to avoid at all costs. Then we got high fructose corn syrup, then we got sugar. Now let's talk about the good sweeteners, which is what you had asked. So as we move over towards the good side, as you might have a hunch, we move towards things that are natural and that are in their minimally processed state. So there's not a whole lot of processing that is done to them. Sometimes you will see words like raw on the label. So these are things that are natural. So honey, maple syrup is another great example. So again, and I know I said this earlier, but I'm going to repeat it because it's so very important. You got to kind of, look at the packaging a little bit. There's a lot of maple syrups out there in the grocery store that if you turn it over and look, it'll be like high fructose corn syrup, maple flavoring, caramel color. Okay, they're just making something to pretend that it's maple syrup. So what you got to look for to actually be the healthy sweetener is like 100% maple syrup. Maybe it won't even have an ingredient list because it's just 100% maple syrup. But that's what you want to look for. So what's cool about these healthy, natural sweeteners like honey and maple syrup is that not only can your body handle the amount of sugar they contain, but they also give you health benefits. They give you minerals. In the case of maple syrup, you get B vitamins. there are a lot of different health benefits associated with honey and other bee-like products. I'm actually going to do a video on it here in a couple of weeks because it's kind of a cool new thing I've been learning. I've always loved honey, and now I've just discovered all of these like even more wonderful things about honey that I didn't even know before. Dates are another natural thing that you can use as a sweetener. Dates typically, will maybe be best for something that you're going to be blending up, like making smoothies. I will typically add dates to give some sweetness to my smoothies. So we could also talk about agave and stevia here. Now, if I go back to my little spectrum, I would put agave nectar like somewhere over here. So it's not bad like high fructose corn syrup and stuff like that. It's not terrible. It's definitely a better option. But it's not as good for you as honey and maple syrup. And it's because it's processed. Okay, it's not in its natural state. You don't actually just like open the agave and pour the agave syrup out of it. Okay, they actually have to process the plant to create that agave nectar. So again, it is more natural, but it's not what I would consider the healthiest sweetener. Stevia could probably go over here among the honey and maple syrup, but it doesn't have as many health benefits. Now, it is an herb, so there are some nutritional benefits that we get from stevia, but again, it's kind of a processed food. The actual stevia itself is a plant. It's a leaf. It's green, right? But a lot of times when we actually get the stevia oil or whatever that we put in our food, it doesn't look like that, right? It's been through a processing process of some kind, and in that way, it's not as natural as your honey and maple syrup, which in my opinion are the best sweeteners, both in taste and in healthfulness, related to weight loss as well. So kind of on this same kind of track here, Kyle Studios says, what's the most vital thing to know if you want to lose weight? This has been kind of an ongoing theme today throughout this chat, but I really like that, getting down to the bare bones. There's so much information out there. Hundreds of different diets, hundreds of different products, hundreds of different weight loss plans. It's overwhelming. And I know that firsthand because when I first started getting into this information, I was completely overwhelmed. I was dumbfounded. So I love this. Let's get down to the bare bones. What is the most vital thing to know if you want to lose weight? So I would go back to this is something I mentioned earlier in the chat room here about insulin. Insulin is the fat storage hormone. When you have insulin flowing through your bloodstream, your body is storing fat. And your body can't store fat and burn fat at the same time. It doesn't work. So when you have insulin in your bloodstream, you can't burn fat. Period. Most people have elevated blood sugar levels. So maybe, this is also known as your blood glucose levels, right? How much sugar is in your bloodstream at any given time. So most people have elevated blood sugar levels for most of the day. So we can talk about, you start the day with a bagel and a cup of coffee. If you go to Starbucks, okay, I actually did a video where I went through Starbucks drinks and showed how many packets of sugar they contained. Some of those Starbucks drinks literally contain like 16 sugar packets. They'll have like 72 or 80 grams of sugar. I mean, when have you ever added 16 sugar packets to something you were drinking? But that's how much sugar we're talking about in these Starbucks drinks. All right, so you start your morning out with a bagel and a Starbucks. You've spiked your blood sugar. And you've spiked it up so high that it's not going to go down very quickly, okay? And now your body surges with insulin to try and bring your blood sugar level down. That's what insulin is for, and that's why diabetics have to inject insulin. because insulin helps to take that sugar and do what? Store it as fat. All right, so you start the day with a blood sugar spike. Then around 10 in the morning, maybe you've got a sugar craving. Maybe you go for another Starbucks or whatever. People that are drinking sodas throughout the day, guess what? Every single sip of that soda, you spike up your blood sugar. Maybe you chew on candy. You have candy on your desk, and throughout the day, you just nibble on candy. Every single time you eat a potato chip. Maybe you're somebody, you're not as into sweets. You're like, Corrina, this doesn't apply to me because I don't like sweets. I don't eat sweets. Well, guess what? It doesn't freaking matter. You are still surging your insulin every time you eat a potato chip. Every time you have some white bread, your bagel spikes your blood sugar. So most people are spiking their blood sugar all throughout the day, especially through these things like snacking and munching on things that contain a lot of sugar and or refined carbohydrates. And especially things that have both, like donuts, right? That's like double insult to injury. As long as you have insulin flowing through your bloodstream, your body can't burn fat. So the most vital thing to know if you want to lose weight is to try and reduce. So first thing is reduce how much you spike your blood sugar. And the second thing is to try and reduce the duration of the day or the amount of time during the day that your blood sugar levels are significantly spiked. So what does that mean? To reduce the amount of spike, we can do things like reduce the level of sugar, reduce the amount of carbohydrates. Every time that you eat fats or protein, fats and protein have a very minimal effect on insulin. Carbohydrates are what really trigger insulin, right? Because it's there to transport sugar. So every time you eat your carbohydrates or just sugar itself, you get that insulin. But if you can focus on eating primarily healthy proteins and healthy fats, you have less of an insulin spike, less of a blood sugar spike. You can also use this little trick of, when you are going to eat carbohydrates, eat them in conjunction with some healthy fats or protein. So for instance, if you're eating a chocolate bar, if you were to sit there and eat some almonds along with it, some healthy fats, it will actually reduce what's known as the glycemic load or the cumulative blood sugar result. All right, so simply by combining your carbohydrates with healthy fats and proteins, you can lower that insulin spike. If you can eat an entire meal or an entire snack that is primarily healthy fats and protein, you can eat a meal with a minimal blood sugar spike. And so this is what ketogenic diets are all about. Now, I think a ketogenic diet is a little bit too far on the extreme for the average person. But the guideline or the science behind it is the same. You're trying to reduce the amount of insulin that you're pumping through your bloodstream. So, healthy fats and proteins. Avoid sipping on sodas or having a constant stream of sugar all throughout the day, especially right after you've worked out. Also understand that alcohol is one of the highest sources of sugar you can eat. All right, so if you go and work out and then go and have a beer, you still get some health benefits from working out, but drinking that beer spikes your blood sugar level so much, it stops your body from burning fat. So even if you just went and did this super crazy cardio workout, what's cool about working out is your body will continue burning fat for I think it's 48 hours after your workout. And the primary time that you burn fat is while you sleep. But anyway, so if you can avoid drinking alcohol for 48 hours after your workout, you won't undermine the effects of your workout. Your body will actually continue burning fat for 48 hours, if you can avoid spiking your blood sugar levels. So that was a really good question. I apologize. I guess maybe I spent a little bit too long on that question, but I really do feel that that's the most vital thing to know if you want to lose weight. Eating natural foods, fruits and vegetables, minimally processed foods, those are the things that are going to have the least effect on your blood sugar levels and give you the best chance at losing weight. Sarah Cook says, too many raw veggies hurt my tummy. How to help this? Okay, couple of different things that can be at play here. One of them is just that, our bodies adapt to things, right? Sometimes, actually not sometimes, I say this all the time. Oh, I'm such a creature of habit. So it's a very true thing, right? We as humans are creatures of habit. Our bodies adapt. So what that means is that if you've been eating processed foods for most of your life, which most of us have, okay? I had my whole life until I started becoming like obsessed with nutrition. I grew up eating processed foods. So the body adapts to eating those types of foods. So sometimes when people start to transition from a highly processed diet to a more natural diet, maybe the vegetables make their tummy hurt or they feel like they don't digest them very well. So part of it is just letting your body adapt to digesting a new kind of food that maybe you haven't really eaten a lot of before. Okay, so anyone who's transitioning from a highly processed diet, just understand that there's a certain amount of time where your body has to kind of, relearn to break down the natural foods, right? And understand those natural foods, especially raw vegetables, there's a lot of fiber. Okay, there's interestingly enough, those foods, what do I want to say here without being too science-tastic? One way to think about this is when you eat something, your body has to break that food down to its component parts. So it's like if you had a car and you're like, oh man, my car's not running anymore. I'm going to take it to the shop and see if there's anything still good in it that can be used, right? And they'll take all the parts out. They'll take it all apart. And then that's what they would do if they wanted to start building a new car, right? They got to have all of the parts laid out. So this is the same thing that happens when we eat. Your body has to break down what you've eaten into those component parts. The amino acids, the fats, the carbohydrates, all those different things get broken down. So when you eat a natural food that breaks down easily, okay, this should be a very easy process. It takes the least amount of energy for your body to digest something natural. Now, after years of eating a processed food diet, the body kind of adapts, because what's required for it to break down those processed foods is to literally undo every single chemical reaction that was done to the foods. So if we took a chemical like maltodextrin, potassium citrate, magnesium phosphate, monosodium phosphate, sodium hexametaphosphate, those, every syllable is like a symbol of the chemical reaction that was done to create it. Sodium hexametaphosphate, bottom line is your body has to undo every single one of those chemical reactions to just break it down to the sodium and the phosphate or phosphoric acid or whatever. So there's a lot more work involved in digesting and breaking down those processed foods, but your body adapts to that. And that's why you can have somebody who eats McDonald's their entire life and they'll survive, but they may not be healthy. They may not live very long. They may not feel very good, right? But again, the body adapts, the body repairs, the body survives. But there can be a little bit of catch-up time needed to help the body transition back over to a natural diet. Another thing to consider, Sarah, is that, every person has the potential to basically be allergic to almost anything. So there's a very very distinct possibility that you have a specific allergy to a certain food. And then that certain food you just should try to avoid. So some people are allergic to shellfish, some people are allergic to peanuts, whatever, right? So keeping a little food diary or a little food journal where you just kind of jot down what you ate. And then if you start feeling bad and you get a bellyache or you start puking or whatever, right? That's the kind of thing that you would go back into your journal and write down. And then after a week or two, you can usually, flipping through that little journal, start to make little correlations. Like, oh, you know what? I think it might be carrots. Or, oh, you know what? I think it might be kidney beans. You know what I mean? You can kind of like pull out your little Sherlock Holmes outfit. Be a little bit of a detective to try and figure out, maybe there's a specific food that your body doesn't react to. Another consideration is that raw veggies, in their minimally processed state, right? Natural state, they're raw, haven't been cooked. They can be a bit harder to break down. So the last recommendation I would make is to just experiment with preparing them in a different way. So in some cases, it may just be chopping the food up more or putting it through a blender, making something into, I don't know if you guys have had gazpacho, but it's like a cold soup, but it's blended, anyways. But that's a great way to enjoy raw veggies, but putting it through a blender first will make it a bit easier to digest. Right? Literally you can think like, oh yeah, you've broken down the cell wall. You've really started to whatever. You could also, experiment with lightly steaming your vegetables. And then so a little bit of water in the bottom of the pan. Basically, so if I want to steam veggies, what I'll do is a little bit of water in the bottom of the pan, put a lid on the pan so you can capture the steam inside. And then just low heat. It doesn't have to be super duper high heat, but medium high heat. And then if you've got a glass lid on your pan, you'll be able to see ooh, those broccolis are perfect. Right when they get to that super bright green, beautiful, luscious color, you're like, oh, those broccolis are done. So experiment with steaming, experiment with blending, experiment with maybe keeping a food journal and seeing if it's one specific food. The last recommendation I want to make is to chew your food more slowly. And especially for raw veggies, because again, right, they're harder to break down. When you chew your food, obviously there's the obvious mastication, breaking the things down, breaking down the particles, making it into, more of a smoothie type consistency, right, than swallowing the food whole. Also what happens is your mouth will release salivary enzymes. And then there's actually a lot of other chemical reactions that are going on too. Hormones that are released to help tell your esophagus and the rest of your digestive tract, hey, food is coming. Hey, by the way, about to send some carrots down there for you. Right? So all of that happens. Okay, the communication of your mouth and your digestive tract and all of the processes that come into breaking that food down, because there's a lot of enzymes and hormones and really scientific mumbo jumbo that goes into this process. So simply chewing more slowly, you release more salivary enzymes. You physically break the food up into smaller and more manageable pieces. And then thirdly, you send a more clear communication to your brain, which then sends messages into your digestive tract to prepare it for digestion. So sometimes people will be like, oh my gosh, if I eat too fast, I feel like I can't digest my food. And literally, quite literally, if you eat too fast, your body can't digest your food as well. So anyways, between those little 4 recommendations, I hope some of that is helpful for you. I really do encourage people to eat vegetables. If you can't eat them raw, cook them. Whatever it takes. Even if you stir fry them in oil, it would be better for you than not eating any vegetables at all. There's also certain vegetables that you're not supposed to eat raw. So that could be another consideration. Like potatoes as an example. You're not supposed to eat potatoes raw. There's certain things that I don't really like to eat raw. I don't really like raw cauliflower. Another thing you can do is, if you're going to eat them raw, is to soak them in a little bit of vinegar. And that'll kind of help to break it down. So for instance, broccolis, and cauliflower. Sometimes I'll make like a raw broccoli salad, and you just like chop up your broccoli and then let it soak in a little bit of vinegar, and that will also kind of help to break it down. And I freaking love the flavor that you get from that as well. Alrighty, you guys. Man, there's so many questions. I'm not even halfway through this little comment thing. Love it when y'all quote the live chat theme song. Y'all are so freaking cute. Lacey Yeagers is asking about getting rid of stretch marks. So this is something that obviously you get tons of questions about. There are so many different stretch mark creams and stuff out there. The product that I am super excited about right now, and actually I'll be posting a video about this product next week. The company's called Derm Creations, and they have a product called O2 Derm Relief. And what it is like highly concentrated oxygen inside of this little gel. And then you put it on topically, and your skin absorbs the oxygen. And so the O2 Derm Relief that I have right now is a pain relief gel. And the idea is that you apply it topically, and you can also apply it to like acupuncture points and the nerve endings on the spine that correlate to the place of pain. And so that oxygen is going to sink in, absorb through the skin, and you get that metabolic oxygen that helps to go into the muscle and literally repair the tissues, relieve pain, and etc. So that same company, Derm Creations, also has something, I think it's called Silk, O2 Silk or something, I don't know. But it's the same basic idea, applying topical oxygen, but it's the purpose of it, the design of it, rather than being for pain relief, is to help just oxygenate the skin, giving you more silky skin, smooth skin. And I have a strong feeling that that oxygen gel would also help you get rid of stretch marks. Oxygen has been known for centuries, really, but certainly a very long time by scientists. They've known that oxygen creates healing. Oxygen repairs damaged cells. It's just like this miracle ingredient. And who knew that it's also what we need to survive? It's also what we have to drink in order to survive. So oxygen has all of these different benefits. So Derm Creations is the name of the company. I can't remember, like I said, which the one, I think it's something silk related. But putting that highly concentrated metabolic oxygen on a stretch mark or bruise or scrape or any kind of topical issue, I would definitely think that that would be a really, really good way to help the skin repair, help it to rejuvenate, etc. Does corn flour have an insulin spike? Yep. You know, another thing to think about is that, like, have you ever seen corn flour growing out of the ground? Have you ever, like, walked through a field and been like, oh, there's the cornflower plant? No, you walk through a field and you're like, oh, there's the corn. There's the corn, right? So once you have corn that's turned into a flour, it's been processed. It's no longer in its natural state. So if you were to look at the glycemic index, which is how they categorize the insulin spike or the blood sugar spike correlated with different foods, it's called the glycemic index. The glycemic index of corn flour would be higher than the glycemic index of just corn itself. So it also depends on the corn flour and how processed it is. Okay, so in the case of that enriched white flour, okay, the wheat flour that I always talk about, and probably a lot of corn flour, unless it says whole grain or whole corn or something like that, what they'll do is they'll actually take the fiber out of the grain, leaving the very starchy part. So in the case of wheat, okay, there's a bran, a germ, and an endosperm. So basically you have like the starchy part, the part with all of the nutrients, and the part with all of the fiber. That's kind of an overgeneralization, but the concept is there. So what they do is they take the fiber and the nutrient part out. They use that for the cow feed. Okay, so they're like getting like double return on their wheat. And then the enriched flour is just that starchy part of the grain. And that's why white bread is so like sticky and starchy and white, right? Because they took the fiber out. They took the minerals out. So enriched flour is considerably higher glycemic or causes a bigger insulin spike than if you were to have a whole grain wheat in the form of a porridge or a whole grain wheat bread. So the thing to look for is like whole grain. And again, understand that on the front of the packaging, you can't depend on that. Because what they put on the front of the packaging is there for marketing. So literally on your Cheerios and your Oro wheat bread and all these things, they're like whole grains. And there's even a little symbol, right? There's a little symbol for like whole grains. But if you turn those things over, by and large, over and over again, you will see that maybe the first ingredient is whole wheat flour and the second ingredient is enriched flour, or vice versa. So literally they're just adding a little bit of the wheat flour so they can call it wheat, or so that it will appear brown. Or sometimes it'll just be enriched flour in caramel color. And it's not an actual whole grain at all. So what you got to look for on the back of your ingredient label is like 100% whole wheat flour, or 100% whole corn flour. And then you know that at least, even though it's processed, at least they used the whole corn. They didn't take out the fiber. Or they didn't take out one of the other components. So yeah, people talk about, Twisted Mickey says, just the smell of cooked bread is amazing. And it's because it's basically pure sugar. Why is white bread so good? Why is it like candy? Why can you sit there and just be like, wow, white bread, it's so delicious? It's because it's basically pure sugar. It's just the starch. Starch and sugar are kind of synonyms for each other. We think of sugar as being sweet, but you got to understand that starch is sugar. Carbohydrates, these are all the same thing. And that starchy white flour does the same thing to your body as white sugar. From an insulin perspective at least. Okay, you guys, I'm going to, at this point, scroll down to the very bottom. I am so sorry. It's really funny. I do these chats every single week, and sometimes I'm like, maybe I'll be able to answer all the questions this week. Wouldn't that be cool if I got to all the questions? And I never do. Ever. There's just too freaking many. I've been talking for the last, it's almost going to be 2 hours straight by the time I get done here. And I still can't get to all the questions. So what that means is just, I'm so thrilled that you guys are so into this and that you guys have so many freaking questions and that you guys are interested in this information. So I'm just so freaking glad that y'all are here. I love that there's so many questions. I wish I could get to more of them. Yes, I'm 6 feet tall. Somebody's asking about my height. Maybe I'm like 5'11" and some change. I don't know. But I'm basically 6 feet tall. And then with shoes on, so that's flat-footed. And then even with like flat flip-flops on, that would put me over 6 feet. But if I wear high heels, I'm like 6'4" or 6'5". I'm a freaking giant. It's a little bit embarrassing sometimes, honestly, but I try to own my height. I try to be proud of my height. Try to be confident. Because that's what I want for everybody else. Is for you to be confident in yourself. To love yourself. To feel so good in your body and so good about the life that you're living that you're just like a walking, talking, smiling machine. That's my goal. Anyways, guys, everybody's talking about height over here. I actually don't see any questions now at the bottom. Lee. Okay, so I'm just going to answer this last question. Just, Lee says, why in the bleep would you let a tight gap video on your channel? So I think you're talking about the thigh gap video. Okay, so I mean, understand guys that like me and Mikey, so Mike is the guy who started this channel like 10 years ago. I've worked for him for almost 8 years. I've been on Psychetruth for a long time. But he's the one who started the channel. He's kind of the boss of everything, kind of like runs the show, right? So one of the things that we're always doing is that we're like looking on YouTube, we're looking at things that are trending, we're looking at things that people are searching for because we want to make the content people want. So one of the things we do is like look at what people are searching for. And that's one way that we, you know, kind of try to gear our content towards what people want to watch. So anyways, we were making all these fitness videos, and we have all kinds of fitness videos. There's tons of them. There's yoga, there's ballet, gymnastics, all kinds of stuff. And then so one of the things he saw come up was thigh gap. And there's all these people making thigh gap videos, and everyone's like, oh, I want a thigh gap. Anyway, so when we made that video with Donnie, and even Donnie, when she made the video, she didn't know this either. We had no freaking idea that it was like an anorexia thing. We had no freaking idea. We thought a thigh gap was like six pack or butt lift or whatever. There's all these things that people search for, and like, I don't freaking know, but it's what people search for. It's what people search for. So that's why we did it. So literally, you know, we made that thigh gap video being like, oh, it's a leg workout. Great. Leg workout. Let's just call it a thigh gap. And I mean, we did not realize that it was the whole thigh gap thing was related to like what they call pro-ana or pro-anorexia. I mean, we just had no freaking clue. And then of course the comment section went berserk with people attacking us and being like, I can't believe you would do this. Why would you do this? Guys, we were just making a leg workout video. It's going to help you get strong legs. It's going to help, you know, give you more strength in your lower body. Like, that's it. We called it a thigh gap workout because that's what people were searching for. And interestingly, guys, that thigh gap video is one of our most viewed videos on the entire channel. So as much as everybody wants to hate on us for making a thigh gap video, it's clearly what people wanted because like millions of freaking people watched it. But the bottom line, guys, is that like we in no way are trying to make people feel guilty about their bodies. Like our whole goal is to help people feel more confident in their bodies, to feel stronger, to feel more flexible. Like we want to help you meet your health and weight loss goals. We don't want to shame someone about their body. We don't want to encourage someone to crash diet or be anorexic or anything like that. That's not our intention. So anyways, just wanted to address that. Yes, cows have 2 stomachs. All right, I'm not even seeing. Y'all are just talking about height and age and all kind of, like, you know, kind of stuff is going on here in the chat room. It's freaking crazy. Anyways, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and end out this chat for today. I've got an entire stack of papers on my desk of stuff I have to do, but it's okay because I had a really fun live chat, and I really hope that you guys had a fun live chat too. In classic live chat form, I'm going to sign out here with a little live chat theme song. I don't know why my exposure is so dark today. I apologize for that. I should have... I don't know. It's so weird. A lot of it has to do with the fact that I'm relying on sunlight. So when I set the light and color settings for the video, it looked really great and bright. And now suddenly it's a lot darker. So I apologize. I actually can't change my I actually can't change my exposure settings. That's a tongue twister. Once I've started the chat. So unfortunately, sorry. It was a dark chat today. Corrina getting all dark and mystic. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for being here. I just cannot thank you enough for coming, sharing your time with me. Lots of really, really good questions today. I apologize that I was not able to get to all of them. I'm really never able to get to all of them, but I do my best. We covered a lot of ground here. Lots of really good questions. So thank you all so much for being here. I really hope that you will subscribe to Psychetruth so you can come back and join me again soon. I'm actually going to be posting a video very shortly after we end here today. It's actually a breakfast foods video. So someone earlier had asked about breakfast foods. I should have mentioned that the video I'm posting today is all about breakfast foods and giving you some healthy breakfast ideas, bashing some of the bad breakfast foods that there are out there. So anyhow, I hope that you will go and check out that video. It will be getting posted in the next 10 or 15 minutes. That is my first to-do list item today. When I get done with the chat. It's time for live chat. The Psychetruth live chat. Every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time on your YouTube machine. Live chat, live chat, live chat, live chat. The Psychetruth live chat, live chat, live chat, live chat. The Psychetruth live chat. Ooh. All right, guys, I'm way too goofy for my own good, but I really appreciate you guys being here and appreciating my goofiness. I have so much fun doing these live chats. I don't know if y'all could tell. I don't know, maybe, just maybe. So anyways, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's not an old Gibson. It's a Diamond archtop, which is, of course, kind of modeled to look like the old Gibson, but it is not a classic vintage guitar. Anyways, guys, thank you for being here. I look forward to seeing you all again next week. Same bat time, same bat place. Come back with your same bat questions, and I will be here. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I will see you again very soon.